Karl, thank you for spending some time with us this morning. We've known each other over the years. You're building a boat right now, for Carlos, I should say, up at the Merritt place. But let me read something that the IGFA posted when you were inducted into the Captain and Crew Hall of Fame, to give the audience just an idea about the broad spectrum that you come to the table with. You held your first paid mate's job at the age of 13. We'll talk about that. And has since risen to become a globally known figure in the world of big game fishing, having fished the world over from Key West to Australia to Nova Scotia and beyond. You captain and manage several custom sport fishing yachts to some of the world's finest sport fishing destinations, with thousands of billfish and tuna releases to your credit. I mean, that's a big number. Beyond your remarkable work as a captain, you also are an accomplished journalist with the writing, photography, video work, with a sweeping, profound presence in this industry, with many national awards. You're an IGFA representative, and you basically chair the Rules and Recognition Committee for the IGFA North American Regional Council, but you're also a vice chair of the Captain and Crew Hall of Fame with Skip Smith.
Yep.
What are you most proud of with all this?
Just the hard work it took. And honestly, I'm most proud is that I am, of all the people that I've worked with over the years, Carlos, Mark O'Brien of the Briar Patch, the Fondrins, and you name it. I've become really good friends with them, where we travel together and we do stuff. I've had a great relationship. It's not been an employee-employer relationship. It's been friends, and I manage their asset as if it was my own, and I look out for their best interest. And I think, I look at the industry and I look at the average captain, and maybe he holds a job for 5-6 years. Very few people go. Like, I was with Mark O'Brien for 30 years. I've been with Carlos for 15.
Right.
And other folks too. The Fondrins and the Truexes. Martin Truex and always managing multiple boats. And there was times when I had 5 or 6 boats under management, and they would want to do a trip, and they would go, well, what's this schedule on this boat? And they would work around each other's schedule. And that's unusual, highly unusual.
Yeah, because they all wanted you in the same week.
Pretty much,
Well, I called Skip Smith, and he says that you're a great historian. You have an incredible amount of energy, and you bite off more than you can chew, but you can pull it off. And you can back it up. I mean, that's high regard from Skip, right?
Skip. I mean, Skip's one of the guys that, you think back. I mean, Peter Wright did an article about the best captains in the world, and the picture in Motorboating and Sailing for Pete's article was Skip like he was walking on water.
Wow, that's high praise from Peter Wright.
And that's how I feel about Skip. Barkey and all those guys. I mean, those guys were doing stuff that is just mind-boggling. And I was at that stage coming up through, looking at those guys. I mean, that was Ted Williams. You know what I mean? Those were the guys, and they were doing things that were unbelievable. And, you kind of get bit, and you go, man, you saw how other people operated and what was going on, and you saw how they operated. That's how you need to. That's what I want. I want to operate like that.
But you were with Peter Wright in on the Great Barrier Reef, for a number of years.
Went a couple times.
Did you have a mentor? Or did you take a lot of stuff from a number of individuals?
I worked for a lot of different people. The first captain I worked for was a guy named Fred Comm. He was a clamor bayman. Built his own boat after World War II. He was in the Navy, came home and built his own boat, the Sapphire Lady, and that was his charter boat for years and years.
This was in New Jersey.
In Beach Haven. And he he was the top boat when I was a young kid. My dad got me the job because my dad had, worked on the charter boats in Beach Haven, and was incredible. He's way better fisherman than me, by far, And he got me the job with Fred, and of course, my first couple days, and I struggled. I had been fishing on private boats and stuff, but I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And tangles, and Fred would be like, "Can't you see? Can't you see?" And finally it came to me, and I got going, and it just came, and and I got to go do a marlin trip, and it was all over. That was, that lit it on fire for me. The excitement of it. Couldn't sleep the night before. I just couldn't wait.
From that moment on, did you know you wanted to do that the rest of your life?
I did. And I used to sit there. So I'm going to tell you a little story. During that time, with Captain Fred, I got seasick. And
welcome to the club.
Here I am on the charter boat, and I'm like, I'm not going to get tips. These guys see me getting sick. Fuck, and I'd be at the back of the boat putting the lines out, and I'd be throwing up, and I perfected how to throw up with that, so they wouldn't know, because I thought, man, if they see me throwing up, they're gonna be like, we got some rookie, chump, and I was like, man, I got to make them tips, because I got paid $22 for the day, and then all the tips you could make. Well, I realized real quick, cleaning fish, doing this, that, and make sure they got drinks. That's how you get tips. You're entertaining them, and if you're sick, you're not doing it. Anyway, I outgrew it. And
is it just time on the water?
Yeah, I guess so. And just by the end of the summer, it didn't faze me anymore. And
I would think up in the tower when you're rocking in rough seas and stuff, that would be even more difficult not to get sick.
Well, you're up in the fresh air, and I love being up in the tower. So you're in the fresh air and everything. I think it's actually a little bit better.
Right.
I think when I was getting sick, it was CO2 fumes. The CO2 is the biggest factor in seasickness. It's not, some people have inner ear deal and all, but CO2 is really the culprit. And, there's been great studies done. Sea Ray, of all people, they had customers, they were selling a lot of boats, but they spent a lot of money to figure out, how can we stop seasickness? Because if people are sick, they're not going to buy our boats.
Right.
And they had these boats that were, all back end was just like a bubble, and the CO2 just rolled in, whether it was diesel or gasoline. Mm-hmm. So, I think that has more to do with it than anything.
Right.
You come up through the industry, and I've been in the boat building part of this business, and I've done the marketing, done the building, done all kinds of stuff. And those pieces of information come in real handy when you're building a product. You've got to know what's going on and what people have done and where they've spent their money. And you look at what other companies did. How did they research that, and can we glean anything from it? And so I got to read all that kind of shit.
I want to talk about boat building in a second, but let's go back to the early years, when you were younger and your dad was on the ocean. He was a fisherman. Mm-hmm. What kind of influence and what kind of relationship did you have with your dad growing up?
As it is today. My dad's 91 now, and he'd love nothing more than to go fishing. So he went all over the place. So I grew up with pictures of my dad on the wall. 1968 Hatteras, 5 blue marlin hanging there. 1969 Newfoundland, giant bluefin tuna. They went and did stuff. He had a friend of his, a man named Dick Ryan from Pottsville, PA, who was in the coal and real estate business. And he had a boat in Beach Haven they called the anthracite coal. And my dad was his first captain, and they went and did stuff. And then he became his buddy. So I can work for you. And so they were friends forever, and they just went and did stuff. They were on all over the place.
So they were kind of like maybe groundbreakers in a way? Possibly?
Oh, for sure. In 1959, they were the first boat to go to the canyon. There was 3 boats that went to the offshore canyons up there in the one summer. It was the Amigo 5 out of Brigantine with a guy named Herb Clofine and his captain, Whitey Fools. And then, I can't think of Whitey's last name. Anyway, then the Anthracite, and then a guy named Ben DeGudis on a boat called the Miss Magnus out of Manasquan. And those 3 boats were the first boats to get off out past, like 60, 70 miles and literally in the canyon. And they were, groundbreakers for sure.
And that's 100%. When they were tuna fishing? Or marlin fishing?
They didn't know, right? Like they're thinking, man, bluefin tuna. They're thinking all kinds of stuff. And of course, it became a white marlin fishery. And then later on in the mid-60s into the 70s, the yellowfin tuna showed up.
Yeah, that's what we caught when I was there. I was out there one time.
Yeah,
and it was big yellowfins.
Yeah, and it's a prolific. Now you got guys running past the canyon and going way out into the deep, 120 miles. It's just. So
let me ask you this: when you go out that far, are they looking for an edge? Edge of a canyon, past the canyon?
Everything and anything. Temperature breaks, edge, you're going to the other side looking for maybe the edge of the Gulf Stream or the far edge of the Gulf Stream.
Mm-hmm. All based on fishing that water that's moving north.
satellite
Gulf
data.
Stream.
But in the 1950s and 1960s, you didn't have sonar, you didn't have anything.
No,
so
no,
they're
no.
just looking at fucking water.
Looking at water, looking at rips, looking for birds, chicks, sailor gulls, what looks fishy, smelling it, and
What do you mean by smelling it?
smelling the slick, and fish are feeding, and
The
when they're
slick is
feeding,
like the
Oh, yeah.
blood
they're
and the
feeding,
oil.
everything comes up to the top, and you're like, "Ooh, smell that?" Okay, we're here. Yeah. Those are the tools that you had. And even when I started going in the my first trip was 77 was my first trip to the canyon, and of course I was relegated to sit on the bridge. My dad's like, no, you just sit right there and watch, see what's going on, see how this works. And we caught a 610-pound blue marlin, and that was it for me. I was done. I'd seen the Old Man in the Sea and Islands in the Stream, and see those pictures of those fish, and and then to go to Australia and meet those dudes that filmed that stuff was pretty crazy, right? Later on in life, but that bit me, and that turned my switch right there. I mean, that was like, okay, this is what I want to do.
Mm-hmm. What were you doing when you got hired at the age of 13?
I was deckhand on the boat. I had already fished, on private boats and stuff, and but he hired me to be the mate on the boat.
That's when you were,
Wow. Yeah, go get the cake of ice. That was what we called a cake of ice, was like a block. And you put the block of ice in, take your ice pick, chip it up, and you're blue fishing and weak fishing, or, sometimes if we couldn't get offshore, we went flounder fishing, but we sailed. I mean, he had a charter book that was unbelievable, and we went. It'd be blowing shitty. He's like, okay, we're going to go fish in the bay. We're going to go catch some fun. We're going to take this charter, so it was the best boat in town. It wasn't a beautiful boat. It was a homemader, and she'd had a bunch of years of service on her, the old Sapphire lady, but he went, and he was recruited to play professional baseball as a pitcher, but got interrupted by the war. So he chewed tobacco, and the helm was offset on the flying bridge, and all day long he'd be chewing. He'd lean over and spit. So at the end of the day, there's this trail of tobacco juice running down the side of the boat. And I washed the boat with Tide laundry soap. So I had to go up there and scrub the damn tobacco juice off the side of the boat at the end of the day. But it was a great learning experience, because you're tying knots, you got two planers in the water, you got hand lines, you got four rods, and and it's a charter boat, right? So like every dime counts. You lose something, geez, man, that's $15, whatever. And he was very hard on that, like, look, you got to pay attention. This is cost me money, and so you could only take so much of the so. He's like, look, if you don't know where the lure is, because you can't, it's not like they're on the surface, everything's underwater. So he taught me, when you get it set, you know where you want it to be, take a couple spools and crisscross the line. So the next time you put it out, go to the crisscross. Well, then it became a magic marker. Mark the line. So speed, right? Because everything, that's where I learned efficiency. If you don't have that lure out there, you're not going to get bit. So the least amount of time that it's in and not out, the more chances you're going to catch something.
Right.
So it's like manufacturing, right? It's all about efficiency. And that really comes into play when you're sail fishing and you're trolling. You've got to have stuff going. So how do you do that? Most guys, you'd have four rods, and then, we got to retie. And I'm like, that's not right. Let's get another rod. And then it became, let's get two more rods so that we are nonstop in rotation all the time. And there's a bait in the water. If you don't have bait in the water, you're not going to catch them.
Wow.
So even if we're fighting fish and we got him, he's on an inside turn over here. We got one going out on the long rigger over here. We'll catch this one. Just leave that out. It's okay. Oh, we got bit. Okay. That's how you catch them.
It sounds like this is all driven from tournaments.
Not really.
Because why would somebody be so aggressive to being efficient on just out having a fun day of fishing?
Well, because you're charter fishing, and those people that come are spending their good hard-earned money, and they're working in a factory in Philadelphia, and they bring their metal cooler, and they got beer in it, and they're coming down for the day, and they're taking every last scale home with them, because that's their fish for the year, right? So, the bluefish, which is a fish now, kind of looked down on for some reason, was in the day, it was a regale. I mean, people served it in the restaurants, and we could, if the people didn't take the fish, I could go sell to a local restaurant the leftover, and they would be serving fresh bluefish on the menu. And in the past few years, for the past maybe 15 or 20, there has not been a bluefish catch. It's a cyclical deal like all fisheries, right? And but you had to catch, and there was competition. There was other charter boats, and
sure,
I'm not gonna. I want to be the top dog,
right?
Yeah, there's a little bit of ego and pride
for sure. You're not gonna outfish me, man.
Mm-hmm. When did you first start going over to the Bahamas and catching the big tuna on that white sand?
I got asked to do that in 1983. These guys in Beach Haven that I knew from Beach Haven had the little 42 Merit boat, the Cat's Meow. And they knew me, so I was down in Florida. I had gone to college for a year, took a year off. And that spring, I saw the captain, and he had me do some cleanup work on the boat because I was working up in Palm Beach. And he's like, "Hey, we're going to go to Cat Key, you want to go with us and, go for a month and a half. We're going giant tuna fishing." I'm like, "Hell yeah, man, go on this little Merit boat." And turns out Charles Perry was the other mate. So I had known Charles when he worked on the Wild Duck, which was in Beach Haven in the summers from the Leak family. So, Charles had the famous album, the Split Tail album, which was, he talked girls into taking pictures standing on the transom or wherever with their drawers off, and he's got it in the ass shot of all these girls, like the Split Tail trolling bait shirt. So anyway, it was always I go over to the Wild Duck and check out the Split Tail album, and he would have some crabs or something. We sit there and pick a crab on the dock and listen to him talk about Australia, because the other album he had was Fishing with Peter Wright in Australia. So he was Pete's mate in Australia, and the stories are unbelievable. I mean, the one story that shakes your boots is, how fast can we catch this fish? And even Charles said, man, it was nuts. We caught this fish in like 3 minutes, and he goes, the fish was not ready to be caught. And he's like, "Pete, you're nuts, And anyway, so all these stories and everything, and just and in Cat Key in that year, I met Pete. The best of the best.
Everybody was
Peter
there.
Wright.
Yeah, Peter Wright. Yeah, who became a great friend and business partner, and and mentor, and a lot of other things. The writing, obviously, and just watching him do that, and the consulting, and then we produced videos for Penn Reels, and we made our own video with motorboating and sailing called Boat Handling for the Sport Fisherman, teaching people how to drive your boat to catch fish better without just backing up with power, how to use the boat as a tool. Mm-hmm. And we talk about line drag, and we talk about, belly in the line, and all that kind of stuff is very technical. But, Bart Garnsey was there, Obie O'Brien, the Greeks, the Staros brothers, and, all these guys that were like the top dogs in the deal.
So it was almost kind of like that's during that time of the year, all the big boats were in the Bahamas chasing tuna.
May, June, yeah. And it was...
what did it look like? I mean, we always heard about, these big fish on that white sand.
Crazy.
How would you fish for them? What is it?
You're first of all, you're taking all the riggers off. You are strictly there to bluefin tuna fish. You're not worried about anything else.
But you're not trolling, correct?
Not trolling. You are going you're moving to the south on what's called Tuna Alley along the edge, the 100 edge, and there's a white sand patch. You're lucky when they come on that. You might see them up in the flats. You might see them a little bit offshore. But, like Alex Adler was there. That's where I met Johnny, and just every...
Johnny Morris.
Johnny Morris, the best of the best were there, right? And, there were guys that could go and fish marlin that couldn't come catch a tuna. But the guys that could catch a tuna at Bimini and Cat Key, they could go anywhere and catch fish.
What was the trick? What was the sophistication of catching those things?
Trying to get the bite. Once you got to the fish and you saw them coming, you turn the boat and you get your bait out there, and you're making a pass with one bait, right? So you got a guy in the chair, you got this guy steering the chair, you got your guys in the tower looking. It's a total visual fishery, and you got to get a pass that's good, and you'd just get lined up, and a barracuda would eat the bait. All right, bring it in, change it out.
What kind of bait were you using? Mullet
and mackerel. Big Spanish mackerel and big mullet.
And when they say that these
are dead?
Natural bait, they're dead. They're dead.
And when you guys say that these fish were on the flats, I mean, they're like not in 5 feet of water. They're in 30 feet of water.
Yeah, 30, 15. 30, 15. Maybe some up inside. Yeah,
how big
sometimes there was fish up behind Cat Key. Like they, like what? Anyway, it was just one of the neatest things. And everybody's in a line, right? So, like, you wanted to be early, so you got the lead because you wanted to get the fresh bunches. You didn't want to get a bunch that was already worked over by somebody, right? So it's just like homosassa.
So you're all lined up,
yeah,
right?
Everybody's in a line, and we're looking at somebody might be out here looking, somebody's inside looking. But like when they're coming, everybody's, guys are hooked up and it's on. And of course, the big thing is that the edge drops off so fast. And when you get bit, if the fish starts to go offshore, you've got to race the boat. So like the boat might be doing 20, 25 knots. Getting off the edge so that you didn't get cut off.
On the edge.
Right? Because, like, there's the edge, the fish is going, and you've got to beat him. Otherwise, you're over here, and he's here, you're
gone.
Done. You're
How
smoked.
big are these fish?
They're, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700 pounds.
Yeah. On white sand.
But, like, they're torpedoes. I mean, it's one of the most amazing things. And, I I got to go do that, and I never missed a year for 8 seasons. It was like I took off every year, May. I can't work. I was just freelancing in the video business, and when I finally graduated school, and but even before that, as soon as school was up, I was down there.
Right.
I saw the last couple of years, Alex Adler's been catching big bluefins off of
in the
Alamara.
Keys. Yeah. So they're coming this way. So in Capt, they're going north after. We used to think they were spawning in the Gulf. It's pretty much reliable, but now these fish are coming down, and in the spring they're going around the Keys. Over here on this side, and they're moving to south, and the kite guys are getting blown up with them and getting spun, but the fish are coming through. And Alex's deal is, when the wind's right and the water gets that purple, those fish are in. And he knows, the great story is, he says, Johnny, tomorrow it's going to happen. And Johnny dropped everything, gets on the plane, comes over, and then go out that day and catch one.
And that was a couple of years ago.
That was, 2 or 3 years ago, something like that, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And, so he's kind of created this new fishery in the spring, and it started because the kite guys at Miami were getting bit, and getting the tunas were blowing up on a kite bait. They're fishing 20 pounds, so
right.
Smoked. And anyway, then they started seeing him. Alex would see him because we call him beady eyes because he's got a set of eyes that are unbelievable. I mean, the guy's got eagle eyes. I mean, he's incredible, and he's just kind of created this thing and. It's hard to do, but you get the same deal. He gets in front of them and makes a pass and gets the bite. And
so, would you wiggle the boat, move the boat across their faces?
Yeah, you're making turns. Inshore pass, offshore pass, inshore pass, and you're trying to get that bait over, right to him. And sometimes if the first couple fish don't bite, you get the bait behind them, and you had a short mark. Where it's close to the boat, a little bit closer, and then you had a long mark, so you're further away. And that depended on the conditions, in the calmer conditions, you might have your long bait, your long mark back, or, but short mark, you'd hear the yell from the tower, short mark, and you'd wind up to short mark because there's fish here, and we're getting ready to make them. So we don't want the long back here. You want to get it up to the short mark so that you make the pass on this fish.
Interesting.
Yeah, so there was a lot of comms.
Your angler had to be pretty quickly.
Totally on the game.
Pretty fast because you only had one bait out there.
Yeah, and obviously the advent of the 2-speed and 3-speed reels helped that fishery dramatically. And that was, Finwar came out with the first gearbox, and then Penn came out with one, and that also helped with the marlin fishing. But the Cat Key deal is the heavy tackle fishing at Cat Key is what aided Australia because those guys were big fish guys, and then George Bransford catch a 1,000-pounder in Australia in like 1968 or something. I think 1968.
So these guys took that information and those techniques to the Great Barrier Reef to catch those big marlin.
So Bransford was from Fort Lauderdale. He was a paratrooper in World War II. Went to Cairns on leave and fell in love with the place, and so he built a boat called the Sea Baby and started fishing out of there. And he had a reputation here in Blue Marlin, in Fort Lauderdale, for catching blue marlin. So he goes out and he catches his first 1,000-pounder. Well, the next season Pete was his mate. Pete, got the 1,000-pound fish. Pete's right there. So
Pete chased him down.
Right, goes and fishes with George. Well, he knew George from Fort Lauderdale because Pete was from Fort Lauderdale, and then it just that was the explosion, and the clientele that went over there to fish. The Australians didn't really know anything about it. the clientele was the Cat Key heavy tackle guys.
Interesting.
So you had this fishery that was a tuna. He's pulling straight up and down. Now you're over here catching 1,000-pound marlin in an absolutely beautiful place out on the reef, which was the advent of the mothership. All that came to be from the reef in the early days. We got to get further up the reef, but we don't have any facilities. Well, hell, let's just get a big yacht or a big boat, whatever. The first was like the reefed coral reef tail. It was this catamaran like dive boat thing. And they just said, we'll use this. It had fuel. They could carry food supplies so they could cook every night. And they ventured up the reef, to go up the line and created this whole industry. But it was Pete bringing and promoting it and bringing, these guys over and really fed the early days, Peter Bristow, Brzaka, and, maybe Dennis Hayes, some of the early guys that were over in Cairns fishing. And they created that whole industry. But the techniques changed a little bit because these fish are jumping, and a black marlin jumps, more than most of them. I mean, he's going vertical all the time. So you had this fish that was down and deep pulling, and then you got a heavy tackle fish that's up in the air. So there had to be a lot of technique and how to manage your line, how to deal with, the right. When you get a big tarpon on, you're bound to the king, right? And same kind of deal with marlin. Like you got to know how to deal with it. So there was a lot of learning curve, but all that heavy tackle stuff that we take advantage of today, and somewhat for granted, that all came from Pete and those guys in between Cat Key and Australia.
It's kind of like Homosassa, how that kind of fed the Keys and later on Mexico and Belize, but the record chasers in Homosassa really kind of pioneered that big fish tarpon fishing.
Yeah, a lot of those guys came from the Keys, and then when they went up there...
But a lot of those guys were Tampa and Homosassa and northern Florida residents.
A lot of them.
So I got to go be a cameraman on the tape we made for Bass Pro Shops called Quest for Giant Tarpon with Stu.
Oh, you were on that.
So I was the second cameraman.
How cool is that?
So I was the underwater shooter and the second guy, right? So I had my housing and everything, had all my underwater gear. So I go to Homosassa, and we're going to spend, I guess we were there like 10 days maybe to make the film. And the thing that amazed me was how similar it was to Cat Key. The etiquette with the boats in position for this group, these fish are chaining. This is my bunch, I'm on them. You go find your own. But guys were kind of lined up, like looking for the fish coming down that we're going to make up in chain, or they were just coming down. And it amazed me. And, you had the same caliber, right? The best of the best were there. Murphy was our guide, and for the film with Stu, and Stu caught the record, but it was only like 3 or 4 pounds over what it was, and he's like, "No, we're not going to keep it." And I'm in the water filming it, and I'm watching them, and they're measuring and doing this, and I'm filming this, and I hear them, like it's not big enough. It's big enough. It's record, but it's not big enough. If we're not crushing it, I don't want to take it. And I was like, we're here to get the record, like filming. I'm like, holy shit. And let's go. I'm like swimming away, following this fish. And I'm like, I stand up fine. I'm looking around and I'm like, holy shit. I go, that was him. That was him. He had measured. It was him. And I'm like, all right.
I remember
because you understand the importance of a record.
Well, and I mean, that was the auspices of the show.
Right.
And I'm like, holy shit. But that also made the show.
Mm-hmm.
It said a lot about Stu and his philosophy. And so, like, look, if I'm not going to crush it, I don't want to beat it by 2 pounds, and then somebody beats me by a pound.
Right.
What's the point?
Right.
And that said a lot. And I totally understood it after thinking about it. It was like, wow.
Yeah, he wants to eliminate that from the record book.
Yeah. And anyway, but the similarities in the boat etiquette, the best guides, the best anglers, the tackle, the whole deal. It was an absolute, kind of mirror to Cat Key. It was really cool.
I would almost think like Stu was as similar to Peter Wright in the tarpon world.
Mm-hmm.
He was the guy that was catching all these big fish.
Yeah, but Stu a lot of times was the angler. It's more the comparison would be like Huff.
Well,
yeah.
Mom's worry, though. Stu had his own boat, and he was guiding people.
He was guiding. Yeah, he guided, too.
When he first started, he was guiding. I mean, he was a pilot, obviously, but he was guiding, and kind of a lot of those guys came under his wing, I would think that he'd be there, but you're right. Huff would be, a good comparison on the other end.
Because he's like the guide's guy.
Oh, yeah.
And that's that.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know Peter Wright. I never met him, but it seems like every time we have a big name offshore guy on the podcast, they speak about Peter Wright, how guides speak about Steve Huff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no.
You wrote a great article about Peter Wright, when you were honoring him and his legacy.
Yeah.
When you were with him in Australia, talking about the circle hooks, and you spoke to me about, Ron Hamlin and Peter and yourself. Tell me a little bit about that whole circle hook, the innovation of it when it started to become really effective, and you guys put it on your boat.
Well, Pete got, I was there filming, right? So I was kind of like, the helping deckhand, but I was there to film. So Pete got tired of watching the bleeders, just the same way that Hamlin did, sailfishing, the billfish deal.
A bleeder is a fish you release and bleeds.
He's, caught deep down, I know Tim Cho talked about it, you catch him, you're caught in some sort of an organ. Be it his stomach or be it, in the gill rakers, right? And you're doing harm to that fish, right? So the circle hook deal came from the tuna fishing because you were catching these tunas right in the corner, and not in Cat Key, that was a J hook, but in Carolina when they were doing all that. And Pete kept saying, man, we gotta figure this out. So we were fishing a kingfish tournament, Fordyce and Pete and I was at Seacraft Boats, and we had the demo, and we put a tournament on. So I had Pete and Fordyce and me fishing, and the fishing was off the chain. It was just unbelievable. I mean, the fishing was on the Jupiter Ledge, and we were running in, rebaiting. We went in and rebaited twice. We ran out of bait. So at the end of that day, Pete goes, look, they're biting so good. Let's try this. So we cut everything off, put the circle hooks on, put the bait on. And those guys were, hooking them through the back or through the lips and everything. And I took and went and hooked it underneath, in a caudal, underneath the tail, and let them swim in. I was kind of like live lining it, got them on, and the fish is hooked right here. And Pete got bit. Fish took it. So we went around, we caught a bunch. And we got talking about it, and we said, if we can catch these things like this, we can certainly do it. I was frustrated as hell sail fishing with them when we first started doing it because it was too much change. So everyone was like, well, there's a circle hook. We got to do something different. Well, reality is it turns for the angler, right? The angler's like, I got to let him eat longer. I got to do this. I got to do that. And he's like, when it all finally flushed out, you did the same damn thing that you did with the J hook. But what you did do different was you didn't strike them to set the hook. You just went real slow, pile it up, and turn around and get, right? Get that hooked here. Because if you set the hook, the circle hook pops right out.
Right. Slowly get tight.
Slowly get tight, and it just comes up. And if it's down here, it comes out. It can't catch anything. But when it gets to the corner, got him. And so there was this whole, can we do it? Can't we do it? And what Pete and then Hamlin got up at the Billfish Foundation one year and said, and he was catching, I don't know how many thousand of fish a year. And he said, that's it. He said, I'm going to make a pledge right now. I am not going to use J-hooks anymore. I'm solely going to fish circle hooks. There's no reason for us to be watching these fish leaking oil. It's just, and he went on and made a very compelling case and speech at this thing with back then the Billfish Foundation, like that was, the right guys were there, suit and ties, every anglers were there, captains. And he pushed it over the edge because they had the vehicle to do it. They were in Costa Rica, they were going out wherever, and they were catching numbers, and they could figure it out. And that finally came over. And I remember at the Masters tournament, we were fishing, and they instituted the circle hooks. And we said, all right, this is all good. We've already messed with it. And guys are, they were doing all the thread sewing like in the Pacific. And I just like, man, I want all that thread and all that, I went clean, streamlined stuff. And I had an Australian decky with me, really good, great fisherman, Tim Mitchell, and we kept going over it. And I said, we're in the Keys live baiting. We take a little piece of wire and we, run it, we wrap it around his bill and the hook's out the bottom. And I go, we got to do the other. Let's flip it over. And anyway, we went through several gyrations, but we got it to pretty much where it is today, where it's through the eye sockets and the hooks right there on top. And Anyway, we caught him good. All my anglers, the master anglers, every day you get two different anglers, and it came. You know what I mean? It's just from there on out, it was all circle hooks.
Do you remember when you first started using the circle hook on the big marlin on the reef?
Yeah, it would have been Pete. He would have been doing that like by 90, 92, 90, 92, 93, somewhere around in there.
So you were talking earlier about filming the bite. Tell me the first time you thought about how am I going to get a billfish biting this bait with a camera?
So I've been a camera geek. I got a camera when I was in 7th grade, and I was, photography. That day that I was sitting on the bridge, 1977, the first fish, that blue marlin comes up on a teaser. And I'm sitting there looking at this thing, and he's just... And I remember distinctly thinking, gosh, if you could put a camera behind that thing and watch him come up and eat, it'd be unbelievable.
So from a very young age,
yeah, like I just kept thinking, wow, man, how cool would it be to see that? And of course, I watched Jacques Cousteau and underwater stuff. I mean, I was enthralled with all that, but I'll never forget. I thought that fish came up behind that teaser and glided. My dad gets a flat line, winds it up, puts it over there. Fish comes over, piles on, hooks him. And we had a guest who had bought the trip from a Ducks Unlimited dinner. And so my dad hands over the rod to the guy that bought the trip. And he caught the fish. But anyway, that's really when I thought it. And every time after that, I kept thinking, fish would come up on a teaser. And I'm like, God, how cool would it be to, record that fish doing that, And I was did a deal with Ed Murray and went to do the film in Australia, Australia's Great Barrier Reef trip of a lifetime with Pete. And got home that winter, we edited, put it together, and Ed Murray kept saying to me, I wish we could record these things, underwater. And I go, man, I'm right with you. So we practiced with this gear that he had. He had this camera that had an umbilical cord, and you could, kind of move it around in the pool, and stuff was clumsy as hell. And I'm just like, why wouldn't we just troll it off the corner of the boat right there? And he's like, all right, so we sent me to Mexico, to Isla, and I fished with Wink Dorsbacker. Ed chartered the boat. And he came down, he fished. So we deploy this gear. We had practiced with it here. And has an umbilical cord. And I got a little monitor set up just inside the door on the 43. And, the mate, Johnny Mack, rigs up a ballyhoo. And we have a clip on the camera. And the bait's right there in the camera lens. Mm-hmm. And first, fish comes up. And I start yelling. I'm like, yeah, there he is. I'm looking on the monitor. Wink comes down off the bridge. What? He thinks the boat's on fire because I'm losing my shit. I am absolutely fucking going ballistic. And, the sail's up there. He's eating the thing and everything. And anyway, get him on. So now I put on my gear and I jump overboard and I'm, filming, swimming with the fish and everything. And get back in the boat. And Wink's like, man, we got to do that again. He goes, let's watch it. And I go, we can't watch it till we get in. So let's just set up. We'll do it again. So we did it. We got another one, And then I said, there's got to be a better way. And we were fishing in St. Thomas. And Bill Spoler, that owned the Cat's Meow, later that summer, was down there. And Bill says, I told him all about it and everything. And Bill owned a custom, an injection molding company. And he's like, we can do that. And I had this housing. He goes, let's just put a nose cone on it. And I said, yeah, put some wings on it like a planer. So that it'll, we can stabilize it this way so it's not, wee-walling, right? Because when you put it behind the boat, it's wanting to do all this. Anyway, we do it. Charles Perry was there, and so Charles, we deploy the camera, and sure enough, this blue marlin comes up, and we just keep messing with him because he just keeps coming, and we got, soft head back there, and dropping back, pulling up, drop back, pulling up, and we get this thing, it ate 18 times. And,
wow,
and we were just messing with him, and he just kept coming back, and the footage was like so cool. But I know that was the first time a blue marlin had ever been recorded underwater eating a bait. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure the Mexico, the sailfish was too. Most everybody thought so. Anyway, that was cool stuff. And, I remember my dad's like, hey, you got to figure out how to market. I'm like, well, who's interested in that? Just me. I didn't have the resources to do anything with it or anything like that. So it just kind of happened. Now, you got GoPros and all this, these mini little cameras, and everybody does it. Like, yeah, no big deal, But we were the first to do it. No, hands down, no question about it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Did you dive with the fish quite often?
Yeah, I did it up in Jersey, in the canyon. I'd jump overboard and swim around with him. And Charles did too. Charles got the same set of gear that I did. So, like in St. Thomas, he was jumping over and swimming with him. And, yeah. yeah, it was,
I found it fascinating
Something to
when
do.
Guy Harvey was talking about when he was swimming with a big blue marlin that the swordfish wanted to kill him.
Yeah. I know this. I was filming in Mexico, and I was in the water. I'm shooting a sailfish, and it was with Wink, and a blue marlin free swam right up here. And all of a sudden, I peel off to go film the free swimming blue marlin, and Wink is like, what's the matter? He starts backing up the boat like someone. And anyway, he gets away from me. I pop up, and Wink like, are you all right? He didn't know if I was being chased by a shark. He didn't know what was going on. But that free swimmer came up, and I just went over and went by him. Had sailfish come up, like get right in my face, jump and hit the camera and back off. I had experiences like that. But
What's the biggest marlin you've ever been a part of?
with Pete, 1254. First day I arrived in 2000 and no, I'm wrong. 1989, 1254. Crazy.
What was that like?
Did you reel it in, or were you
No.
mating,
I arrived that morning, and got on the boat. And we go catch fish. I didn't even have a chance to get my gear out, basically. And that was an unbelievable deal. And it's what you go there for. But I didn't have any part in it. I was just an observer on the boat. Anyway, it was cool. It was crazy.
What's it look like when you see this big giant come up behind the boat?
Well, I mean, your adrenaline just goes to 10,000. You're just holy shit, it's a nice one, and just everything starts happening. Your blood's rushing faster. Everything's going. You become acutely aware. Like that's what's going on. Madeira, this big blue marlin come up, and you've got to have all your shit together real quick.
So I got a question for you. This might be a stupid question, but I've never done big fish blue marlin fishing. So when you get a big blue marlin behind the teasers and you see him and you're like, holy shit, this is the fucking big one, how often will you not get a bite out of him?
In Madeira, that happened a few times. I mean, I remember one time I called Barky. I had one swimming in the middle of my spread, just looking. I'm in the tower. I'm watching. I called Barky. I'm like, man, I said, Bark, this fish has been following me for 6-7 minutes. I can't get her to do anything. We're putting lures over. We're dropping a lure in front of her, winding it up. We're trying all kinds of stuff. Turn the boat a little bit, try and get an inside turn on her, go this way. And Bark's like, oh no, they'll do that. He said she may not eat at all. That fish followed us for another 5-6 minutes.
So they're just curious.
Yeah, just like what's going on. We've had her come up, and I swear they're looking at the propellers. They come in, they get in between the teaser and in between the boat, and they're kind of doing this, and it's unbelievable.
But what's that? What would you say the percentage is that a big blue, if once it gets behind the whitewash, it's going to eat a teaser?
Man, that's depends where you are too, what size fish. In a place like Madeira, it's probably more often to happen that you might not get a bite. Those big fish aren't dumb.
Because I was watching a YouTube video, I typed your name in, I watched a YouTube video of, I don't know if you filmed it or someone else filmed it on one of your boats in Madeira. Then you had a big blue marlin come in the back of your spread, and you guys were reeling baits in and letting them back out and reeling them in and going to the right and going to the left. And you guys were really like adjusting your spread in order to get that bite, and I really never I didn't know that existed. I thought the blue marlin came in and he bit or he didn't bite.
Well, sometimes it's a crash bite. I had one fish in Madeira in 06, came in, we're throwing this way, and this fish came from the bow of the boat and came back and hauling ass. And attacked my left short, just piled on.
Ate it going away?
Ate it going away. Came out of the water and, it was going to eat that thing no matter what. There was whatever he thought that was, it wasn't getting away from him. And, we caught that fish. Fish was probably 800. And, real nice
just a
fish.
Little one.
Nice fish, right?
A little rat.
Yeah, but in a place like St. Thomas, it doesn't happen as often. Those fish are younger. More 300 to 500 pounds, and they kind of come in and they commit, but those big ones are different. And, you talk to Kevin Nakamura in Hawaii, it happens there sometimes with the big Pacific Blues, fish will come in there real lazy and kind of, they're kind of cautious maybe. I don't know what you'd say, but, and it's just, They're all different. Every one of them's different.
Does a cautious fish, can you catch that fish?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes you can convince them, yeah. Yeah, when you see him, if he just comes in there and he's just kind of dull,
Right.
and then all of a sudden lights up, he's getting ready to make an attack. Right. It's got to look right.
I've always said a good fisherman can catch a lot of fish, but a great fisherman can catch a fish that doesn't want to be caught. Is that true with the offshore world as
sure.
well?
Yeah, sure it is. It's you're trying to make something do something that has the brain the size of a pea.
What's the best trick you have up your sleeve to catch that fish that comes in very lackadaisical and passive?
Making moves with what you have in the water. And if you don't have in the water what's happening, if you've got a bait you can pitch to them, you do that. So we always have a pitch bait ready, always on each side of the boat. Mm-hmm. So you're, if he doesn't come up and eat your initial stuff, you're going to grab that pitch and try something, sink a bait, and then wind it up and sink it again. Because a lot of times they'll eat it on the sink,
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. But it's fun. I mean, you're dealing with big animals and it's neat. I mean, it's a rush.
Was there one fish that taught you more than any other fish in your life?
Yeah. In Bimini.
Do you remember one fish that really? Yeah.
I was wiring a tuna in Bimini, and we used to wire with welder gloves, and the wire, 19 wire, got caught around my glove here, and got wrapped around my arm, and
you still have that scar?
Yeah, I still have it.
Wow.
And I luckily backed out of it. I saw what was happening and got out of it. And, I let that hand go and I let this hand go, but it got caught on my glove. Welder's gloves are flappy, right? Mm-hmm. And I didn't have the Velcro straps that we later implemented. And but that fish taught me, look, you got to pay attention all the fucking time. You're going to have a problem.
Because you hear with guys that get wired, caught, and they get ripped out of the boat and they end up drowning.
Yeah, that's happened. It's unfortunate.
Any of your friends?
Really, really unfortunate. No, it happened to a guy named Chris Bowie. I didn't know Chris. I mean, I knew of him, but very unfortunate. He got it's just something happened, and that's that moment. That fish really made me think of, you've got to have all your shit together. And when I'm driving the boat, and I know that guy's about ready to grab a leader, I'm lucky I have really good wirement. I had Tim Mitchell, I got Bo Jennings, some of the best. And they know what's going on, but they also know that I know how to drive the boat so that we don't get them in trouble.
What do you do to prevent them from getting into trouble?
I have an earphone, and I talk to them on a speaker, say, okay, here's what's going on. And I can see, if something's happening in the cockpit, hey, clear that, get this out of the way, and we get set up to do it and make sure, all right, let's take them on the side. We never take a fish at the back of the boat. You always want to take them on the side.
Why is that?
So that you can lead the fish along and keep him swimming. If you stop the boat and the fish is just free swimming, you're done. He's got you. So you're trying to lead the fish, right? It's a leader. Mm-hmm, so you're trying to lead the fish along, and sometimes it's going away. You're backing up, and the fish is going along with you like this back, and you're taking them. And if you're going to gaff them, you got to have that guy behind him. You never have a gaff man in front of the wireman because he's got to be able to move forward with the fish, no matter what you're doing. So the gaff always comes in from behind, or the tag stick. All these little things have to come to right. Now we have great gloves. We have guys that make, Bo Jennings makes Obadu gloves. He does a great job. They're leather, with patches on them so that you can really pull on a fish and it won't crush your hand. And, all these developments have come along. And, the welder's gloves were, clumsy, right? You're trying to get a wrap, so you have no dexterity. So we would cut, then we go, cut the fingers off, and then we'll put a yellow glove over top, and because we started using mono, and the mono would slip, and anyway, it's always a learning curve.
Right.
It's always a learning curve. You introduce something else that has an effect down the road. Again, it's a cascade of shit. Mm-hmm. If you do this, it's going to affect this, and this.
So many different elements,
yeah,
right?
It's a lot.
I remember I've got a tape called Cockpit Chaos,
where
Stuart Campbell gets ripped out of the back of his boat.
Yeah, again, okay, so there's best crew in the world. It's just, Bart Garnsey driving the boat. I think Charles was there, and Spencer Stratton. Stuart's in the chair. We're talking millennial years of experience, the best of the best. And shit happens. You know, like one stupid little thing, the wire came down, got caught on the guide.
Yeah.
And that fish Charles had to let go. And, you know, they always say the best wireman is not the one that holds on forever. He knows when to let go. And so the guy driving is always reading off what the wireman's doing and knowing. Anyway, that loop came down, got caught on the guide. Fish surges, and Stewart was he didn't see it, wasn't ready for it. And
Ripped him right out of the boat.
Yeah, I've seen the footage.
Yeah, so it's brutal. I mean, brutal.
What do you? Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
He was lucky as hell to survive, and he came up looking like in really bad shape. I mean, they were shook up as hell.
Yeah. So what happened was he was fishing for a world record fish on, I think, 20 or 30 pound.
30, I think it was a 30 pound.
So what happened was the bite tippet or the leader is like 400 pounds or something like that, and that wrapped around the rod. So the line couldn't go off the reel.
Right.
And that's what ripped him out.
Yeah.
And then it stripped all the guides off the rod, and it got to the 20, and it broke.
It finally
at that
broke.
point.
I remember having dinner with you, Carl, and Carlos Duncan in Colorado, and that was just a really fun night. But it was also interesting to hear your take, because I asked you about what the Bad Company, their world tour is doing, and what you thought about what they're doing in Anthony Shea. And I mean, it's from the outside in, it's pretty incredible what they're doing.
It's unbelievable. It's unprecedented. I mean, the investment in time alone is mind-boggling. But when you look at the investment in hardware and crew, and it's spectacular. It may never ever be done again. Who knows? I mean, but the commitment from all those guys, Steve, you could have a better guy running the operation, and it's mind-boggling, the commitment. You've got operations going on in basically 3 oceans, Indian, Pacific, Atlantic. I mean, it's unbelievable, the commitment this guy's put to it.
Boats in all different.
Yeah, I mean, the logistics
oceans.
of moving those boats around, and I mean, when you start getting into the minutia, spare parts, being able to maintain the boats, keep the boats going, tackle, ship stores, and getting things to places, and dealing with local governments and all the little things. It's hard enough to do with one boat, and these dudes are doing it with 2 motherships, several game boats, positions in faraway places, hard to get to. It's mind-boggling, the task they've undertaken, and my hat's off to them. I mean, really, you think about it, and there's been a couple other operators, Skip, obviously, on the Madam and the Hooker, the El Zorro, Jim Edmonston and his guys, Billy Bohr and all, they did it. But this is unprecedented.
They took it to another level.
It's 5 levels above. It's unbelievable.
I know. I really want to know how much it cost Anthony 1 year of fishing.
Well, as Bill Spoler, the guy that owned the Cat's Meow, we had caught a tuna in Bimini one day, and we were all celebrating, and we're getting kind of loose. We're cleaning up, and the locals are cleaning the fish and everything, and we're just hosing everything out next to the weigh scale, and this lady comes up and says, "Excuse me, how much did it cost to catch that fish?" And Bill, he's got the hose in his hand, he's got a Bex in his hand, he looks up and he says, "You can't put a price on pleasure." Done.
Open-ended.
Done. He had a good time. He didn't give a shit what it cost, right? Can't put a price on pleasure. And I think that's Anthony's deal. He loves fishing. He loves the game now. He's like so deep in the game, he's like committed beyond he even thought he would be committed.
Other than the expense and the with the boats and the different locations, is he doing something that no one has ever done other than the expense and the exposure?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's doing, Skip had to go from place to place to place, and these guys are fishing this month in this window, and then a month down the road they're fishing all the way over here in this window to meet the seasons in those places, where Skip did it over a period of years, right, to get to Cape Verde. Well, from Cape Verde to go over to Brazil, and you got travel time.
Right, the travel.
Unbelievable.
I'm talking about maybe the knowledge. Can you get better as a marlin fisherman than what the best have already done?
Well, I mean,
what's groundbreaking? What is new in the world of marlin fishing? Or
Well, that's like saying, okay, what's new in Tarpon, right? I mean, like everything's kind of already been done one way or another.
Sure.
So even like when you look at tackle innovations or this or that, you look at it and go, well, there's a derivative of that that's already been done. Now, on what scale or whatever, I keep looking at this scale and the mass of what they're doing. I don't think, they're using the same techniques in each place, basically. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, and they have a wide array of crew from around the world who bring different things to the table. Mm-hmm. So are they learning more stuff? Absolutely. There's no, every day you go, you're going to learn something. So these guys are going to places where they're having to learn new grounds, which is always a challenge, right? You're trying to figure things out and put pieces of the puzzle together to be able to have yourself in position to catch something. So yeah, are they learning new stuff? Absolutely. Like mind-boggling. They're learning about logistics of equipment and boats and stuff. They've had a look at things in much different perspective than the average angler and crew, because they're moving at a fast pace. They're moving at great distances. And to me, it's an interesting endeavor for sure. No question about it.
Do you think there's a destination that is unknown that has really great groundbreaking marlin fishing, or is it everything pretty much been discovered?
Peter B. would sit around and we would look at charts of the world and, go, and you kind of looked at the earth in sections of water temperatures. Pete did. Pete was very scientific in his approach. He had a master's in biology. He had a degree in finance, and one of our friends used to say he had more degrees than a rectal thermometer. Because that was Pete. Super smart guy, but Pete was very cerebral, very scientific. He always looked at data points, and he always preached that. But we would look at charts, and I would marvel at the he would look at it like, we got to go fish there. And, he would figure out, that's like him just leaving Australia. He would pack his bag and go, if there was a marlin there, he'd go, he'd go check it out. But is there any place today that's not been touched? I don't think so. If it's not been touched, it's only because of world situations where it's an untenable place to be. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of those, Mm. But other than that, I would say that most places have been looked at, or at least if you can't get here, you're close by over here where you can, and you get a gist of kind of what's happening.
I was always fascinated by Zane Grey in his book, Fishing to Tahitian Waters, where it took him like 28 days to catch their first bonita for bait, and what they were doing, where he went there and he built all these little cabins. Yeah. He had a freighter that took all the wood down there and built these cabins, knowing that that's where he was going to make this kind of a commitment. Tell me about your fascination with the early guys that were fishing the world for big game.
Well, Zane Grey was on another level too, right? So Zane Grey, over his lifetime, he had two different motherships, the Fisherman 1 and the Fisherman 2. And he, Tales of Fishing the Anglers El Dorado, New Zealand. Tales of Fishing Tahitian Waters, Tales of Fishing Southern Seas. He wrote about it, and his prose obviously was this old school kind of prose, like his cowboy books. I've read a ton of his cowboy books, The Thundering Herd and all, I love them. Anyway, I would read that and go like, holy shit, so I went, this is in New Zealand, I went to Otaheite Bay where his fish camp was in New Zealand. I'm like, I had to go see it, and it's this beautiful bay. And I'm like, no wonder he came up in here, man. He could come up, bring the boat up in, anchor up the ship, the mothership. And he had these boats that were built in Nova Scotia. Captain Mitchell, who was his skipper that, fished with him all the time, he had these boats built. And they put them on the ship, and they went down, and those were their game boats, the Alma G, named after his wife. And we ended up buying that boat years later for Johnny. I found it in... I don't know, like 1992 or
Where is that boat now? In one of the Bass Pro Shops?
Yeah, somewhere. Yeah, Johnny's got it somewhere. And but I called him up. I go, Johnny, I found Zane Grey's boat. And he's like, what? And I see, I'm here in New Zealand. I found the boat. And anyway, one thing led to another.
Sure.
We figured out what to do. So anyway, I went there to Otaheite, but like there's a guy who did a mothership operation with a sailboat.
Right.
he was so into fishing. So we're at the 1992, we're at the World's Fishing Fair in Springfield, Missouri. Peter B., myself, and we were the only two saltwater guys there. And Johnny and Lauren Gray was there, Zane Gray's son. So Johnny has this lunch, and we're sitting there with Mr. Gray and his wife, and Johnny and me and Pete, Stu Apt, and Lauren's telling stories. And I mean, the one that lit us all up was in the crash of the stock market in 1933 or 1929. Lauren's mother sends this telegraph from California and says, "Hey, we're out of money, man. You gotta come home.
Zane, come home. We're out of money.
We're out of money." And he goes, "Nothing I can do about it. We're staying." And he fished for another month before he went home. And Johnny, we were like, "Fuck it, we're going fishing, buddy." It was just great. And anyway, Johnny got the Derrydale, New Zealand book that, Tales of Fishing New Zealand or whatever, the Angler's El Dorado. And Lauren Gray signed it, Johnny signed it, Stu signed it, Pete signed it, I signed it. We all got signed it. So that is a very special collection for me,
Wow.
And it was really cool. But that story about nothing I can do about it. We're
Right.
staying there. They had stores and they could operate, amazing.
I want to bring it back to the marlin fishing real quick. How many people are really pursuing records to this day?
Fewer and fewer all the time, and I don't know why, other than the records have become very difficult to attain, and people are into numbers now. It's all about the numbers. But Carlos and I've had many conversations about if the IGFA would do an annual contest for records, that maybe we'd have more participation in that.
Oh, that's interesting.
So that you would have a fish of the year, as an annual record, as opposed to, an all tackle or a line class record for all time.
Mm-hmm.
Just do it for the year. And, the biggest fish on 6-pound blue marlin, was 210 pounds or whatever, for 2024.
That's an interesting idea, actually.
Well, how frowned upon is that with killing a fish for a record?
Well, there's always going to be, some
Naysayers,
of that. Yeah. I mean, like in the tarpon world, right? I mean,
Sure.
So you get the tags, look, it's a tough thing. I mean, even with game hunting, right? You got to have a tag. You got to do this. You can't just wantonly out and go kill. But if you catch 1,000 or 2,000 fish in a year, or whatever, 500, let's say, you go blue marlin fishing, and you're in a place like Dominican, and maybe we're lucky enough to catch 200 or 300 fish, whatever, and you kill one. I mean,
it doesn't deplete the biomass at all.
Yeah, so it's not a. But there's always the people that, if you kill a fly, you're a bad guy. Mm-hmm. So, you just kind of have
kill
to let
a
that
fly,
go.
you're a bad guy.
I mean, it's like,
yeah.
And we release most of the fish. I never, I haven't killed a blue marlin since in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And I had people that, when we were in Madeira and stuff, we got some nice fish, and hey, we don't want to take it. And my son was 10 years old, and he caught a fish that was like 600. It would have been a junior record. And we're like, KZ, do you want to take the fish? And here's a 10-year-old kid going, no. After he thought about it, we got him on the way, do you want us to? We have the gaffs out, everything. And he's like, no. You always said, if we, it's always better to let him go. We'll catch him again. And I was just like, holy shit, because I thought, man, we're going to stroke this fish, and my kid's going to record.
Shit, I never should have told my son.
Come on, let's get this thing.
And Tim and Ben, my mates are there. They're like, fuck, you little bastard. Anyway, it was just funny, but he did a great job. He got the 130 out of the cover board, caught the thing, everything was legit. And even Stuart was right next to us, and
Campbell?
We're in Madeira, and he was all excited, man. He's like, Stuart's like, man, that's so great, that's great. Why didn't you take it? And I go, well, he didn't want to. And he goes, really?
What's wrong with that?
No, whatever. And he's like, well, that's all right too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's, whatever. But some people have bloodlust, some don't, and I never mind killing them. I like to gaff and fish. I loved I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, marlin fishing. That's a big fish. I mean, I wish I had that kind of blood in my soul a little bit, in my veins, if you will.
Yeah.
I mean, I just get so seasick. But here's the problem I have. I always felt when I was in a big boat that the captain was doing all the work. He was catching the fish, and I was just back there sleeping, bored as hell, waiting for something to find me. I just couldn't do it because I like hunting fish. I like seeing the fish. I like throwing to the fish.
Yeah.
And I have a little bit. It's very interesting because some of these offshore guys that have caught all these billfish with fly rods, I've been with them. Let's see a cast. They don't know how to cast. Mm-mm. They don't know how to fight fish. They want to go catch a tarpon, and I say, I can't take you tarpon fishing because you're not going to be able to even get the fly to the fish.
Fly fishing for billfish today is a total joke.
It really is, right?
It's a total joke because they're not fly fishing. All right, they're trolling. I don't give a shit when anybody says, we're blue marlin fishing. You got to keep the boat moving. The idea with fly fishing has always been to get the fly from here to there, and instead of a spinning rod, we have to retrieve. You lift it up and you get it back to them on a boat. And I did the fly school with Stu. Went to Panama and we did it. I teased fish for Stu and all that, and Stu was always emphatic, neutral. And we were in 31 Bertrams. They would slow down quick. These big boats are moving at a rate that they continue to go. And next thing you know, the guy drops. I watched one yesterday. The guy drops the fly in and lets it all out and then stands there. And, he gets the bite. And I'm like, you're fucking trolling. You're not fly fishing.
Right.
Give me a break. And there's been some very, good professional captains that are like, oh, bullshit. I'm like, the boat is
moving. It's out of gear, but you're moving.
You're still doing 6 knots, And I got in arguments with guys about it and took some shit for it, but I'm like, you're not fly fishing for billfish. I'm sorry. Stop the momentum of the boat and throw. Well, the blue marlin's just going to swim away. He might not. If you're teasing him and he's coming and you're in neutral and he's still coming with lures, that's part of the game.
Mm-hmm. I was really interested because I've done that, and it was just like it's almost like not fair because the fish is there so hot. We caught one with a beer can one time.
Oh yeah,
we tied a beer can to a 9/0 hook and threw that out there, and we got them all teased up.
That was the teaser of choice back in the '60s. Was a beer can. I'm serious.
Was it?
Absolutely. Beer can teaser.
It would blow water.
Yeah, man. They were, it was the original concave head lure, right? Like,
Seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. 100%. Yep. I mean, my dad made them all the time. Mm-hmm. He made some replicas of it to hang on the wall at the Marlin and Tuna Club in Beach Haven to show you, like, this is how we used to do it. Mm-hmm. They take a Yangling beer can and rig her up on some 12 wire. Fire it out there.
I was in Mexico in October fishing for striped marlin on bait balls. And I wanted to catch a fish, free casting, a marlin free casting in a bait ball. But I got there and it was just so damn easy. And everybody else is using like straight 80-pound test. It's like, that's so disrespectful to the fish.
100%. 100%. I look at it even to this day, like, we had this great 12-pound tournament IGFA was doing here in Palm Beach, and they moved it out of Costa Rica, but I was like, should have kept this one too. It would have been a neat deal. We had there was a good bunch of boats that kept coming back, and it was a test of angler skill. It was a test of boat skills and stuff, but it was a fun, cool deal. And I look at it and, like 20-pound is so heavy for sailfish. I get it because you're catching multiples and everything.
They're small fish.
They're small fish. And the angling, Carlos says that I'm from the Corinthian age of angling because I believe in the rules and I, advocate to have a fair level playing field. And, I want to use tackle that the fish has a chance. And, and I do. I think it adds an extra challenge. It adds a challenge to the crew. It adds a challenge to the angler. And makes a fun day. I mean, the numbers game, I get the numbers. Okay. You want to, everybody wants to have a big dick. So you get more than I got. Okay. But I think the challenge, that, anglers would have a better time. And, for me, it's about like everybody, you see these guys backing around and they're filling the boat and all this. That's total bullshit. Let the angler catch the fish. That's what they're here for. Mm-hmm. And I always tell my mates, like, look, let's let the guy wind on it for a little while. It's okay. but they're like, oh, we got to go catch him. I'm like, just let him catch the
Yeah,
fish.
so I felt, in the back of a boat, I just felt like a fly on the wall, and everybody else was doing all the work, and I just happened to have a rod in my hand.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
When we were in St. Thomas, we caught some big fish on the reel tight.
Yeah, with Jim. Yeah.
And I felt like I was misplaced.
Yeah, right.
I felt like I was just a cranker.
Yeah.
The fish came up, and I was just doing this stuff.
Yeah. Well, and again, that's so, the other side of that is when you're like kite fishing, right? Like everybody has a job, right? So all your anglers are sitting there; they all got a rod. When we're trolling, everybody's holding a rod. You're catching your fish. You're not sitting up on the mezzanine and riding along. I mean, that happens, but if you're going to be engaged, you can be a part of it. And we push that real hard. Like look, you gotta be down there and make this happen. And it's there's all levels of this thing, and there's some guys that own boats that they hire a whole bunch of crew to do it, and they sit in the salon all day.
They're not active. Let's talk about Tom Evans and what he did in the world of bill fishing, because we're talking about fly fishing and how a lot of people it's disrespectful, I think, and how they do it, and they pound their chest. And
100%.
So-and-so catches 6,000 sailfish on a fly rod. Who fucking cares?
Yeah.
The Pacific sailfish is really kind of like a sea turd. That's
100%.
it, right?
100%. What Tom did, first of all, Dino, the great crew.
Yeah, Dean and Tom.
Always top crew. Al DeParic. I mean, whatever
Yeah, sure.
Tom did, he had great dudes, right? And that's the key. You got to have a team, and you got to gel. But he did it. Tom's a hard-nosed old dude. He's funny as hell, but he's a hard-nosed guy that's going to do it the right way, and he'll call you out. I mean, he makes no bones about it. But they went at it the right way. And again, you talk about commitment and desire, and he had the wherewithal to go do things that other guys wouldn't have the balls or the guts or the brains to have to stay in it.
The intestinal fortitude. I remember Tom calling me from New Zealand somewhere. They were chasing striped marlin, and I asked him. He calls me. He says, we're taking it up the ass. I said, what's that mean? Mm-hmm. He said, we have 10-foot seas, and we're fishing 12 hours a day. And I asked him, how many times are you throwing your bug? 1.5 times a day he was getting a shot.
Yeah.
And they ended up catching a 230-pound fish.
Cut the record.
Yep. He caught a 273-pound blue marlin and 16-pound test.
Yep. See, that's doing
What's
it.
that mean?
That's doing it.
I mean, you know that better than me. I can't even imagine trying to stop a 273-pound fish on 16-pound test with a fly rod.
I have a whole lot more respect for that than a guy that can go out and catch 25 on 30-pound. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
It's just that that what Tom did, that's like, whoa. Now that's angling. That's angling skill. That's having a crew that understands all the little nuances that go into, line drag, how to fight a fish, where to get the boat so that we don't break them off, and also a guy who's so tenacious that he's got the toughness and the mental aptitude to stay in that and stay focused, because a lot of people, have the attention span of a gnat, and Tom's focus is like laser. I mean, the guy on all that stuff that I respect in more ways than I don't care if you go set the one-day record for how many fish. Okay, great. But that's an individual achievement that nobody can take away from them until they break it. And they're going to have 25 days in 10-foot seas getting their ass kicked and pay the price.
Yeah. I can't even imagine. Do you like sailfishing? I mean, do you like people that come on the boat and want to throw fly rods?
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've done it in Mexico. We've done it up in Stewart. Look, it's a challenge, right? Like, you're not going to catch every one of them.
Right.
But what did we learn from that last one to help us get maybe the next one? And, and there's a process. And again, that's how, you got, two guys tease in, you got your mates, you got the guy driving a boat, you got the angler, and okay, now we get down to where we're going, like we're a team, right? Like I know the timing, there's a lot of timing involved. How does the boat slow down compared to that other boat? How does the boat turn? So you got to get that tuned in, because every boat has a little bit of a different deal,
right? Different
gears, different propellers, different this and that, and handling capabilities. And then, so the timing of coming to neutral, okay, bop it in reverse to slow your momentum. And then the teasing guy has to have, keep the fish coming and then throwing the fly. And Stu was always, teaser over here, fly guy here, and
right.
Go across the deal,
across.
I see guys, they're throwing straight out, and I'm like, yeah, because he's going to eat like this, and that fly's coming out,
You always throw behind the fish.
Yeah.
Who are the Rob Fordyces and the Dustin Huffs and like the major tournament winners today in the sailfish circuit?
Oh man, there's Art Sapp, there's a bunch of really good guys. Ray Rocher. I mean, you can't overlook. There's a lot of really, really good South Florida sailfish teams that are, man, they're dialed in on the sailfish deal. I mean,
what do they do differently than the others?
Work hard. The effort,
fresh bait,
the effort that goes into all of it, having enough bait, having fresh bait, having all the gear ready, and having a crew that gels and knows what to do, and they're just constantly working at it. I mean, they got pilchards up off the bow, they've got the kites up there. I mean, they're just moving, watching. John Louis Dudis. I mean, that the guy. I mean, sailfish just don't get around the guy. He's unbelievable. I mean, he's got a sixth sense, and he's incredible. There's a bunch of really good sailfish guys because it's right here, right? It's like one of the best access to bill fishing in the whole country because it's so close. It happens frequently. It's not so much a seasonal thing anymore, really. It kind of happens, much longer into the year than we used to think. Certainly when I started, it was a December, January, February deal, and then it was kind of over. Now it goes into spring big time, and it goes, from Cape Canaveral and further up to all the way to the Keys, So it's an incredible fishery. So if you're applying yourself to it and you get, you can get really good at it.
And I listened to you on a podcast, and you were a huge advocate for having the client reel in the fish and 100%. Not the mates.
Absolutely. That guy's paying the check.
Right.
Come on, he's writing the check. He's paying the bill. I don't want my crew catching fish. I mean, that's bullshit.
Right.
Now in tournaments, those guys are being paid as professionals to be anglers. And if the tournament allows that, okay. I don't.
You wish that they didn't allow that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Look, the guy writing the check, he ought to be catching the fish. I mean, I could stack the deck on my boat with, 6 top guys too. What's that proof? I got a bigger checkbook than you have. Mm-hmm. Who gives a fuck?
Do you still fish tournaments at all?
Not so much.
Not so much.
No, not so much.
You did your time.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I really enjoy like taking people that haven't caught a fish before or whatever, and getting them their first one, or taking kids and seeing them catch it and getting them hooked on it. But like we have a lot of guests come on the boat, or maybe it's just the owner. But I've been in private service now for a long time, a little bit of chartering on the side, but our whole deal, it's to entertain. Mm-hmm. It's not about how many we can catch. If we can catch a bunch, great.
Right.
But it's about letting them have the experience and let them catch the fish. That's what they're there for.
Yeah. Did you spend a fair amount of time chasing granders?
Well,
like specifically looking for that.
When we were in Madeira, for sure, absolutely. In Madeira, in 06, I went back in 16 with Serenita. The first year in 06, we took the 58 Briar Patch, the Merritt boat over, and the goal was to catch 1,000-pounder. And the first fish we caught was, we called it 950, and I said, holy shit! And I remember yelling down, I'm like, hey, that's what we're here for. And Mark looked up at me, he's like, holy shit.
Right.
And I go, hey, that's what we're here for.
Do you miss that? You still do that?
I do. Yeah, I do. I'd love to be able to go back, and maybe we will.
How can you estimate a fish at 950 and not 1,000? Like what are you looking for?
How do you say that's 950?
The rule is you can't say it if you don't weigh it.
Right.
Sure. But
it might have been, maybe it was, but we have a measuring device that gives us length, and the length and girth measurements are pretty damn accurate.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it's girth squared times the length divided by 800. Correct.
And and Stewart always said in Madeira, add 10% to a Madeira fish because for some reason they're chunked up, and they are. The tails on the things are.
So the weight gets carried down to the peduncle more so. Just like the Homosassa tarpon.
To the caudal peduncle, the fish carries that thickness back. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. It's incredible. But yeah, we're building this new boat. My dream, I'd love to take that thing back over there and put in the time, because that's where you're going there to catch that big fish.
Did you hear that, Carlos Duncan?
Yeah, he knows.
Tell us about this boat you're building.
So I got to tell you about Carlos. So in 16, I had it all lined up. We were going to take a 55 merit boat over we're going to take Rob Fondren's boat. And a guy comes up and buys the boat like in February. And I'm like, there goes that. And so I had Carlos's boat, the Serenita, and we're out fishing. And I said, yeah, he goes, what about Madeira? Are we going to go? And I said, well, the boat, Rob sold his boat. So it kind of puts us in a look. And he goes, well, why couldn't we take my boat? And I go, be careful what you ask for, because we're going. And damn if we didn't go.
Yeah.
I put it together. I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. And so I made an LLC, the Eastern Atlantic Blue Marlin Club. And
so everybody pitched in to go fishing.
I had 7 partners. So we shipped the boat over, and everything got divided 7 ways. They all got their time to fish, and then we came back. And my deal with Carlos was, he gave me the lend lease, and I said, I'll bring the boat back in as shape or in better. And we brought the boat back and still went on for a couple of years, with that boat. So, if you want to make it happen, you can, but you have to have willing participants and, a guy that's willing to throw his tool at the job. Yeah.
Is the bill fishing still great in general? Is the biomass still there?
Peter B. used to say, these are the good old days. And I mean, we've been, look at the Hatteras tuna deal, the Canada tuna deal, look at the bill fishing in the Dominican Republic. Kona, 3 weeks ago, had a guy comes in, he's, I don't know, caught 11 blue marlin or something. Yeah, I mean, it's cyclical and it's sporadic, but if you're in the right place, you got to know where to go. But also we have new technologies that have helped. We have better tackle. We have better boats that can go farther, last longer, more self-sufficient. We have sonar. We have radar. We have GPS. We have bottom machines that, can watch a snapper fart in 500 feet. It's unbelievable.
Can you say that again?
It's incredible.
A snapper fart in 400
it's unbelievable. I mean, the technology is incredible. And
tell me about the sonar. Do you think that is, so it's like drone fishing for tarpon? Do you think drone fishing for tarpon is cool?
No, that's not the right question.
I don't think.
It's not the right question. But they're finding fish with sonar that you can go chase over here.
Right? Is that ethical? And should that be allowed in tournaments?
Well, okay. So let's look back through history. The Norwegians developed echo sounders to find submarines in World War II. That technology was adapted to go on boats, and now all of a sudden we can see schools of fish under the boat. Is that ethical? Mm-hmm. Is that, we went from, linen line to Dacron, which is a man-made material, right? Then we get monofilament. So there's all these advantages in technology that come along all the time. I had a sonar on the Briar Patch, the 58-foot merit boat, and it was a front scanning sonar, right? So it looked like this out front. Mm-hmm. And I could see bait under other guys' boats. I could see where to turn. It made me turn right or left. And I could find that bait, and that's where the fish were. I would mark an individual fish sometimes. Was it illegal? No. It's the technology that's available to you. Mm-hmm. The sonar of today that we have now, which they had then too. They had 180-degree, sonars, but they were like $200,000, more than that. And now they're that. So. That all technology was available. It didn't get into sport fishing boats until guys, realized that, hey, man, this really is a tool, and it just becomes another accoutrement that you put on the boat to be able to find fish. And are they? Yeah, they're very good. You got to know how to use it. Got to know what you're looking at, and that comes with time and refinement of using it and everything. But yeah, it's a great tool. Is it illegal? Is it morally wrong? That's a question for someone who's, I don't know,
But I heard
it's a tool.
That these tournament boats were going off into the dark at like 5, 6 in the morning and finding fish before the tournament hours.
True.
And then they were going, and that's when they changed the rules as a shotgun start, correct?
Correct. Well, no, we always had shotgun starts, but what they did was, no sonars are allowed to be turned on. The other was, there was a sonar division, a non-sonar division, because the sonar boats were catching more fish and everything. And so, you work through all these technological advantages as time goes on. And mostly it affected tournaments.
Right.
And if you're not fishing a tournament, who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
Who
you know
cares?
what?
You know what I mean?
It's a big ocean.
And, the tournament scene today, there's one every weekend. I don't care.
Here's what's interesting, and I said this recently, talking about the IGFA and how we fish with tarpon in the salt. You have a 15-inch class tippet, you have a 12-inch bite tippet. A lot of people fish IGFA, exclusively,
right?
And people were saying, well, maybe we should tell everybody they should start fishing IGFA and inform these people how they should be fishing. And I'm starting to think, like, it's none of my business.
Right.
That captain is catching his client fish.
100%.
That guy might only fish 4 days a year.
Yeah.
And he wants to have all the advantages of catching that tarpon.
Yeah.
And who am I to tell him that he's fishing in the wrong
And
way?
what if they want a bite tippet that's 15 inches because they don't have to retie the whole leader?
Exactly. They want to cut back.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're still fishing 16-pound tests.
You can't police that. It comes upon yourself to say, I want to compete at that level with these guys and do it right. And again, it's the Corinthian thing. To me, the level playing field, and I'm not going to measure what I catch against you if I'm fishing 30 and you're fishing 80. That's a totally different animal.
Right.
I don't care. You caught 20 today. Great. I only caught 5, but I caught mine on 20. So, whatever. To me, I'm good. I'm cool.
So let me ask you this. You're an IGFA rep.
Yep.
Do you have, what does that mean, being an IGFA rep?
When you travel, it means a great deal. So, and I learned this from Pete, from Skip, and everything. So when you're in a foreign country, when you're representing the IGFA, you have connections there, through IGFA. So you can call a guy that's the local rep and go, hey, man, I'm here. What's going on? You meet great people because, now you're in their backyard. You're, inviting them to go with you. Hey, would you like to come along for a day? And you talk about it, and then they, and you're getting information from them. They're helping you. If you have a problem, hey, you got to call, get this, mechanical situation. Okay, go. When you're in a foreign place, you don't know what's going on.
You need all the help you can get.
Hell yeah, man. But I think on the other side of the coin is the people that really understand angling, what the IGFA does, and how important it is. It is to me, I look at it as a very important thing to be a part of, to help, promote our sport in a sportsmanship-like way. Peter B. took me to see E.K. Harry the very first time I went into the IGFA on Atlantic Boulevard in Pompano. And we went in to see Mr. Harry, and I thought I was walking into the Oval Office.
Right, me too.
Man, I was just like, I had goosebumps on my arms, walking up and all the memorabilia's up and everything. This is before they built the Taj Mahal. And freaking, it was just unbelievable. And then we're sitting there, and here's E.K. Harry. The guy, I've watched the, bluefin bonanza of their trip to Newfoundland, catching 16 giants in one day with Buddy Merritt on the Caliban, and Gary Stubbs there, Charlie Hayden, George Matthews is an angler, and E.K. Harry, and I don't know, one of the other, I feel terrible, I can't remember, but I watched that thing over and over, and they're teasing bluefins with the squid and pulling them away, pulling the fish, chipping ice off of an iceberg, and I'm going like, wow, I want to go do that, and here I am sitting in the guy's office who's the chairman of the IGFA, and boy, from that moment on, I was like, this is, you got it. This is how it's supposed to be done. This is the right way.
Right.
And, when Skip went around on the hooker and the Madam, everywhere they went, they raised the flag for IGFA. Everywhere. And did a lot of outreach and a lot of, and teaching people locally, here's the IGFA rules. Here's, this is why you have a leader can be this long. This is what you do. These are the knots to use the right way. And, and it was an educational deal. And I think that's the best arm of IGFA, the science and the education part. And a lot of people don't know, they're just mucking around. But when they start to get into angling and start realizing, hey, I can catch that fish on this, and step it down and make it a more challenge. Some people have that in them, some don't, right? But I think that the IGFA does incredible stuff. And for me, it's a great honor to be a part of that,
Right.
and be able to carry that flag wherever we go, and spread that knowledge, and what the IGFA does and why you should fish like that.
Right.
And history and tradition is really important
and
to you.
And the history, yeah. I mean, I'm a total student of the history of the game. I like to write about it. I like to research it. I love to read about it. And the IGFA is kind of like they're the collector, right? They keep all that data, and so much happens. And like we were talking about before, even though it's been done before, it's still being done in certain ways. But the IGFA kind of chronicles all that.
Yeah.
And so that okay, it's already been done, but now it's being done this way, which is the same as this. It just has different technology.
Right. And ultimately, at some point when you get really good at something, you want to make it harder.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
And you got to follow the rules if you want to make it harder.
Absolutely.
One of the things I'm very interested in is like I think it's a 400-pound blue marlin caught on 4-pound test. Mm-hmm. What is that record?
Oh, I don't know right offhand what the actual number. It's big fish on 4-pound.
Yeah. So how do they do that?
A lot of stuff has to come together the right way at the right time. But I mean, all kinds of things have to fall into place.
I mean, when I watch Skip Smith and the videos of Deborah Dunaway catching the 6-pound billfish, 6-pound test, and this fish is flying all over the place. How does that 6-pound not break?
So
it's crazy.
I had a client from Maryland and lived in Boca Raton here, Warren Klawans, fished with me a lot. He was a great guy, and he would book me to fish before the Masters tournament in Mexico. And he came in and he says, I want to fish 2-pound. I'm like, cool.
For billfish?
Yeah.
2
said,
pound.
okay. And, so, all right. So we go through the whole drill and everything. And I got this, this big 58 merit boat. I'm going, holy shit, I got this big pig, we got 2-pound test, the thread on your shirt's stronger than 2-pound. So, like tying a bimini with 2-pound is a challenge.
But that shit gets you excited.
Oh, yeah, man. Are you kidding me? I was like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
We're in Eastler. We're going to catch sails, maybe a white. So I'm like, because you get offshore a little further, it was white marlin season. I'm like, okay. So we go out. We caught 3 sails on 2-pound one day.
You did?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we caught them.
How do you set the hook?
So you don't. The line sets the hook. So he had this nice little outfit. We had 2-pound on there. It was a little Shimano deal, little rod. And he set the drag just enough to stop a ballyhoo. So when we teasing the fish up, he drop back and just have enough drag to stop it. As soon as the fish ate, he would just kind of let it go, and then the fish would turn, and he would just push up a little bit, and okay, so and obviously I'm
backing down hard,
slowing down. No, I'm just I want to stop momentum because the boat drag is enough to do it, and if I puff, the puff of my wash is going to break the line. So I'm just like, like this, come back. And, anyway, he just, fishes up and jumping, and he's just kind of there. And eventually it's kind of like kite fishing. The fish kind of come back to you. They come back to where they, and the fish would just, go out there, do its deal. And we just kind of move over. No banging and, none of that. Just easing up on them.
Easy.
Just
If you breathe wrong, you're going to break it.
And get him up there and it took several times to get the leader, right? But the mate would get the leader, and then we got him.
And how long's the leader?
15 feet. 15
feet.
Yeah.
And then how much 2-pound do you have?
Well, we had a wind on deal with a 5 foot, with a 5 foot like a 60-pound leader,
okay.
And then the rest was another piece of like I think we got it down to 30, maybe 20. Anyway, we were kind of like a fly fishing deal, right? We just kind of chunked it down,
mm-hmm.
But it was exciting as hell. Next day we go out and we caught 2 whites and I think 2 sails. And I remember, Stuart came up and, Stuart was just like, y'all are crazy. 2-pound, man. What are you guys, nuts?
Now, is that 2-pound, the whole reel is filled with 2-pound test?
Yeah.
Because in fly, you only have 15 inches. But
yeah, no.
You guys,
well, back then we had the whole reel. But, like now they changed the rules so you can have, whatever underneath and you just need a little section of mono, which I was vehemently against. I argued against that one hard, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's the rules of the rules. So anyway, we would do that stuff, and we did it for several years. And I loved it when Warren came down. He was an incredibly cerebral fisherman, a lot of fun. We'd go to dinner at night, and he was just a great guy to have on the boat. And, he'd book me for, those 6-7 days before the Masters,
I could see that would be so much more fun than catching 50 sailfish on,
God,
on
it was
20
awesome.
or 30. Yeah.
It was
the quality.
So exciting. Right? The quality was unbelievable. And even the mates, they're like, tie a bimini on, and then marry some other mono to it on 2-pound test, man. It ain't easy.
Mm-hmm.
So all these little things, right? And it was just cool. But loved it. And he would catch whites on 6-pound up in Ocean City with Chip Schaefer, and he did a lot of light tackle angling. He was very good. Ocean City, Maryland, the Ocean City Marlin Club, the light tackle club up there was a very special club. And the Bob Herder Light Tackle Award at IGFA, Bob Herder was a guy from Ocean City, Maryland, who was a member of that club, and he was a light tackle specialist and really neat guy and a good friend of Warren's. But those clubs had angling achievements, right? It was like the Miami Rod and Reel, when you got your button for a fish in all these different line classes and different types of gear. So you had spin, you had plug, you had fly, you had other. I'm like, that to me is the essence of angling. Mm-hmm. You test your skill in all these different species with different tackle, and that's just neat. And I've plugged fished and jigged, I've spin fished, and caught fly fish and stuff. Not great at it, but I've caught fish on fly. Never got to do enough of it, but caught mahis off of boats and stuff like that with a fly, and caught a snook on a fly. So all the different things. I'm not an expert at any of them, but I like doing all of them because of the challenge.
Makes you a better angler all around.
Yeah, fish behavior, right? Like you get to see fish behavior and how things happen, and I like the visual aspect of fishing, certainly. But my deal was, trolling for big fish. I like big fish, so.
Well, you're a wealth of knowledge, Carl.
Yeah, you are.
I don't know about that, but, it's been a fun time. I know that. Met some great people, got to fish with awesome dudes. Fordyce and I have had just an unbelievable time fishing. We fished the SKA deal, and, a lot of laughs and a lot of fun times,
Yeah.
And just like, but all the different people that you meet and, like meeting you guys, it's just, it's awesome.
I heard you say that if Fordyce is not bleeding, he's not fishing.
Oh, yeah.
He's always hurt.
He's a hazard.
The one Holly tournament I fished with him, he hematomaed his whole ribs and his hip so bad from jumping up from the boat and
trying to get the leader
and decking the casting platform.
Yeah.
His whole side was a hematoma.
Yeah.
He gets hurt. He's
fallen off the tower, hit the motor. He's had hooks in him. He slipped and fell, broke a toe.
Is he not the athlete he thinks he is?
He's like, he's a hazard. There's one way or another. We got tape on this finger. He cut his arm. We're doing it. We're always patching him up. He's just a continual oil leak everywhere you go.
An oil leak.
But he's so fun, and he's a great friend. And of course, he fishes with us with Carlos on the big boat, and we've been going at it for many years now. When he was my guide when I had Silver King, when Johnny bought Silver King, and I was kind of taking care of the pro staff and still taking care of Briar Patch, and I was part time and doing that stuff. But anyway, Fordyce was we became fast friends. It was like instant. We hit it off.
The great Bob Popovich, he passed here this
Jersey
last
guy.
week. Yeah, he said, it's not about the fish we caught. It's all about our friends and the great times we had.
100%.
Yeah.
The fishing is a vehicle to be with people too, right? It's a vehicle to be with your friends and share an experience that's so special. And, what could be better?
Yeah. Well, you've had a big life. What are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to more of it. We got this new boat coming. It's a 77-foot Merit. It's the most technological advanced boat built on the water today, with a great pedigree, a lineage. I've been through a bunch of builds, 72 Merits. I've done a bunch of refits on Merit boats. I've been very fortunate to be part of that whole Merit deal, basically my whole career. From the time I walked in there in 1983 and went on the Cat's Meow. Just kind of always been going back there, but I've got to run a whole bunch of them, probably more than anybody else.
Why is the Merit the go-to boat? versus Vikings and some of these other
Well,
offshore
it's a
boats?
custom built boat. It's a different, it is a different animal. There's, we're working on, we're hull 114, and they started building boats in 1959. So you're
That's
not building 100
crazy.
boats a year.
Right. Wow.
And each boat is built for the customer. But Roy has made the advancements. When you're traveling fishing, like the 63s, the 58s, the 70s, those boats. Don Tyson took his 62 Merit boat to Chile on its own bottom. He
Ran it the whole way.
the whole way. They were, every system is robust. Every system is overbuilt. They're drop dead gorgeous, good looking, and it's an extension of, the Rybovich family, what they were doing. And, Michael builds a great boat as well. And, there's some really talented people building great boats, but I think Roy's the pinnacle. It's a carbon fiber, Kevlar, all the buzzwords of technology, vacuum bagged, and it is a technological marvel. It's not a cold molded boat, which is a timber boat that's glass. This is cord, heavy duty boat.
Sure.
And it's just got all the right stuff for travel. It runs great, and it's the pinnacle.
Well, before Jimmy Buffett passed, he has the last mangrove. Right? The last mangrove?
Mango.
Yeah, it's got a Freeman hull with a Merit cap on top.
That's right. And then the latest project at Merit is a 56-foot by 17 wide catamaran. That was Jimmy's new Mango. Unfortunately, he passed, didn't get to see it built, but it is being built as he wanted it. And there's 5 or 6 sold, but anyway, those are under production. Probably the first one will go in the water, in another maybe 4 or 5 months.
Do you think the catamaran might be the future of offshore boats?
Well, the catamaran's been around since the Polynesians crossed the ocean, right?
Right.
So it's not like it's new stuff. It's a different type of deal. It works great in some aspects and not so good in others, I think. But it's around forever. Yeah, they're going to be around.
So you think more marlin guys will be fishing out of catamarans?
Yeah, it's a growing thing. It's trends wane and ebb, and they come and go. But this late, I got to give Freeman tip of the hat, because the catamaran thing came on for a little while in the 90s, and then it faded off, and then Freeman comes out with his boat, and it's made for the Gulf, that short, choppy, and he's done a great job. And he's put the catamaran back on the map. He really has, because everybody's building one. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so, but Jimmy's boat. He had a lot of great ideas and wanted to see it come through, and he wanted Roy to do it. They were good friends, and they made a handshake deal, and unfortunately Jimmy didn't come through to see it. Which is a shame. It's,
Terrible.
Yeah, I wrote a piece about the boat and Jimmy and Roy's relationship and all in Marlin, and learned a lot. It was, it's a shame, because he would have enjoyed it. It's a hell of a rig.
Well, we spoke about your relationship with the captains and crew being the vice chair, and you were inducted into that Hall of Fame. What did that mean? To finally be acknowledged for all your work.
I was totally surprised. I was on the committee and didn't know, because they had a secret vote and everything, and then they said it, and I was like, well, we only got 5 dudes or 4 guys, anyway, it was I wasn't quite paying attention. And then you realize that, like, you hear that and you go, and then you realize that those peers recognized you for what you've done, and I don't know. It's overwhelming, to be quite honest with you. It's you look at it, and I woke up. I said, "Well, I just went to work every day." That's all I did. I just went to work every day. But as Skip says, I bit off more than I could chew. I would be doing this boat. Then I'd have to go write a story. Then I'd have to go test a boat. Then I'd be up at this company and consulting with them. But I loved the engagement, and I loved the action, and I still do. But yeah, it's you just get up and go to work every day, and that's all. I'm still marvel at it.
You're very humble.
I look at it, and it's hard to believe. I mean, it really is. It's hard to believe.
Yeah. Well,
thanks for coming on, Karl.
Yeah,
I
man.
enjoyed your story, and I'm sure you got many more, so we got to do it again.
There's a bunch.
Yeah,
Really
Thanks for having me, Nick.
You've been,
Appreciate
a,
it.
you've been a
Andy,
great inspiration, buddy.
thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thanks, you
Great to
guys, for
have you.
having me. It's special to be on the Millhouse. You guys have done a great job and preserving the history of our sport with your interviews. It's awesome. I mean, every one of them has something in it that's just a gem.
I
Thank
appreciate that. It means a lot.
It's really well done, and the history of our sport is so important, and you guys are doing a great job keeping it alive.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you, Carl.
Thanks, you guys. Cheers.
When I saw his best story, when I saw it's just a